It's the Bird Emergency. I'm Grant Williams. I am a bird nerd, but special guest, special bird today, all the way from Springfield, Illinois. Hello, Jarod Hitchings. Jarod, hi. Thanks for being with me. We are going to talk about the bird with the amazing name. How are you?
Oh, doing great, Grant. Thanks for having me.
All right. Now, let's get the pronunciation right.
Prothonotary.
This warbler, yeah. How do we say it? Prothonotary. What is a prothonotary? Because that's not a word that we say a lot over here in Australia, but I've seen it in a lot of Westerns. So tell me what a prothonotary is.
Yes, it has several different connotations. One is clerk in the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Catholic Church, and then this followed to the different settlers that came into Louisiana of Cajun or Creole descent, and they named their local officials prothonotaries, and they would do a lot of the booking of files and clerk court papers and different things along that order. They did a lot of notary work. That's what it means. First notary, proto-notary, prothonotary.
And they're probably the first of the real major bribe takers in America.
To a T. Well, the ones that were in the church wore yellow robes, and so the bird's yellow, the robes are yellow, hence the name prothonotary.
The official keeping records at the Catholic Church. What could possibly go wrong?
Slam dunk for sure. That one. But you know what I love?
The bird. Come on.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I enjoy some of the local names that are for this bird. Like in Illinois, it's known as the river warbler or the willow warbler. And in Missouri, my favorite, it's called the swamp candle. I enjoy that one. And then the French translation turns out to be orange warbler. And then, but the one that most people hear, golden swamp warbler.
Golden swamp warbler. Yeah,
absolutely.
Actually, who was it? I think it was Neil Hamilton, who I've got, and who is our ghost bird expert, the night parrot expert. Now, Neil's episode is coming up. It hasn't been released yet, but I think Neil said that was his preferred name for the bird. And I'm generally on board with the whole bird names for bird movement. But please don't lose.
I agree.
It's how did the bird get the name? That's what puzzles me. Is it because of the churchly, the religious garb that the wore, the colour? Is that?
Yeah, that's the gist. But then, like you said, that the French settlers in Louisiana and those areas started calling their local notaries. You had to have, your bill of sales notarized or tax statements notarized, and they just called them, and then it stuck. And I'm like you, I like it. Some of these bird names like this, like bobolink is another one I like, but prothonotary, these are gold. I just love it. You can't come up with a better bird name than that.
And it's not like it's called, Nixon's warbler or anything offensive like that. I don't think I'd be on board with Mrs. Trump's warbler or anything like that.
And I better put my disclaimer out. All views I say tonight are mine alone.
I'm sorry. I keep forgetting that you're in America, and if I'm not careful, you'll get bloody mown down on your walk to the shops. You go, that guy said Mrs. Trump's warbler.
That's all I need. Yeah, you about got me fired up when you mentioned you were talking about windmills or wind turbines. That's a whole other subject. We'll talk about the warbler tonight.
Actually, hey, look, let's do a crossover. The swamp candle is a migratory bird, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, Jarod, because we're coming up to World Migratory Bird Day, which happens, oddly enough, twice a year, because the birds have to nick off, and then they have to bloody well come back. So
for sure.
So there's an up and a down, and a left and a right, and a back and a front when it comes to migratory birds. Where do these little fellas go, and are there any wind farms on the way that they have to look out for?
Yeah, if they're coming north from, if I tell you what, if that wind farm comes in around Lake Erie, that's going to be a major problem. if they're coming up from Canada through the Great Lakes down. That would be a major problem.
Okay, now let's talk about, let's set it up. The bird's about this big, right? He's about 5 inches, 6 inches.
Thanks for doing that. I was going to put everything in centimeters and grams.
Well, for our Australian and New Zealand and UK audience, I helpfully held my hands up to the microphone, so they know how big I'm talking about. I'm talking about the size of an old world magpie or a pipit, or
a little smaller than
here in Australia, probably a noisy miner. That kind of size.
Yeah, it is
blackbird. Are they bigger than blackbirds?
No.
Okay.
They're. This will be easy for your UK and Australian audience. 14 centimeters and then 14 grams. So 14 centimeters long and 14 grams in weight. So they're the largest of our New World wood warblers.
Sorry, Jarod, because I'm tired. We're going to go to the ridiculous a little bit. So the would be in the red corner, and it would be a fair fight up against the starling.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, that's smaller than a starling. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Pugnacious little fellas. They might have a bit of a go. So they're smaller than an old world blackbird, a European blackbird. They're probably, I'm probably thinking noisy miner size here in Australia, maybe a little bit smaller. But they go from, when I say they go, their migration journey. How far north will you find a warbler?
As far north as Ontario, Canada.
Okay, now
that's about as north as it gets.
Is Ontario? Is that in Alberta?
No, it's more. Okay, let me think here. So we have Illinois and Wisconsin, and then Michigan, then Ontario.
Yeah. Okay, so across the Great Lakes.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So we're talking the second quarter across the US and Canada from the East Coast.
Absolutely. They're mostly primarily east of the Mississippi River.
Okay.
And then they go all the way down. There are 3 primary states where they stay for breeding. 50% of all the breeding pairs are found in 3 states: Louisiana, Mississippi, and South Carolina. So you have to think the southeast of the United States is where the bulk of the population goes. Where I am in Illinois, we're on the northern tier of their breeding range.
Are they a fairly homogeneous looking bird across that population? Or do we have some are more yellow or more greeny brown or more white?
That's a good question. They looked at the sexes. That's a real good question. The older mature males, some of them have a more orange tint to the yellow. So you would notice that on a real mature male, he might have almost an orange hue to the yellow look. And then the females look duller. And you're correct. There's white underneath that you'll notice underneath the tail. But yes, overall, I would say for the most part, uniformly, you'll see it. Once you see them, you know what it is. It's like you said, that swamp candle, that flash of light. That's what you know when you saw them. And they have blue wings too, or blue to gray. And the females' wings look a little grayer than what the males look.
Well, when we get round to publishing, I'll try and get some good pictures.
That sells it.
But there's been a lot of hoo-ha. Like you asked me, hey, did you contact me because of the pictures of the birds in Central Park? And the answer to that was no, but I've really enjoyed seeing them. But there's been a lot of pictures of making its way onto Twitter. Even the dog here is excited, as you can probably hear that. The Prothonotary Warbler, everyone's getting excited. Are they a common bird to see within the range? Or, why the fuss, apart from the fact that they're really good eye candy? I can understand why people want to take photos of them, but are they a bird to get excited about in your neck of the woods?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Uncommon is the right word. Declining is another word.
I did want to talk about that. We'll leave that, the conservation status, till a bit later.
We'll go with uncommon. Yeah. And then in the southern United States, particularly those 3 states I was telling you about, you might be able to find them even nesting by a swimming pool. That's how they can get abundant, but they're not anything that's they're not anything that's a bluebird or a robin. It's not in that category at all. It's real uncommon. And the reason why that is in our area is because you have to go and be in the habitat to find them. They don't come up to swimming pools in our yards. They have to be tied to a river system, heavily wooded. There has to be flooded forest, wet woodlands for them to nest and be able to glean insects. So you have to go out of your way and do a lot of wearing waders or boots, or you really have to search for them. That's why this New York City, the Central Park, that's a deal when they show up in an fairly urban setting.
Okay, but to time date us, we're talking in just after Easter so the second half of April in 2022, just in case someone's listening to us on Mars in 180 years' time. They're only passing through Central Park, right? In New York, they're only visiting. So where are they doing the bulk of their business at either end of the journey?
That one, there is a few breeding records in upstate New York. There's still some, but when you get up to New England, in any place like in Canada, except for that one sliver of Ontario that's on the Great Lakes, you're really hard pressed to find them. And they're nowhere in the Appalachian Mountains. They're mostly tied into, as I said, like a river system that drains out into a lake, and there has to be a lot of trees, quite a few trees.
So the bird in Central Park that has been being seen in the last couple of weeks, it's heading north at the moment?
I'm wondering if it is. I'm trying to remember where those records are, where you see them in upstate New York, but they do breed up there. So there's got to be a spot. I'd have to look on that one, but there are, I'll tell you this, there are records of them there.
But they're on the move, as we say. They're either going somewhere to breed or they've finished breeding and they're heading somewhere. So that bird in Central Park is not a resident of Central Park. So which part of the journey do you reckon that he's on? Is he...
I think he is fueling up and getting ready to settle somewhere. So that'll be interesting. I'm curious. After we get off, I'll have to do some research on this.
Well, what do you think of this there? Can you see that?
Oh, yeah. I think that's a fair statement. Yes, I think that's true. Okay. But this is what gets me about him. I'm used to seeing him sticking around and in this real territorial state where we could get into behavior of what
let's do that. And for the listening audience, I just put up a comment from Katie Anderson on Facebook where she said it might be an overshoot. Kind of might be, but as we were just saying, that you can find them as far north as on Ontario, and so let's just set the limits of the distribution. How far south will people find them on the journey, do you think?
In the United States, it'd be Florida. But if you really want to go all the way down...
we're not being nationalists here, mate.
Yeah, Colombia. That's where most of them go. I think these geolocators, they've been placing on a few. They found that about, I believe, it was 89% turned up in Colombia, in those mangroves down there.
Okay. So they're a forested swamp bird on North America, if they're to breed, but their wintering sites in Colombia, mostly mangroves, or will they be found in other habitats as well?
Yeah, they say that I've been doing a little research on this on the elevation, because when they're on their way back, they'll get out of that mangrove state, and they say there's flocks of you could see them flock of 1,000 of them together. That's just foreign to me. I would love, that's on my bucket list to go and see this, just to see this winter behavior, because this is not the kind of bird I see.
Okay. Now, the pictures that you see when people post on Twitter, it's usually a breeding plumage male. Is that right? Okay. So tell me about Mrs. What does she get around in? What's her Saturday best? And
I don't think it's that extreme at all. Her wings are a little less blue, a little more duller, a little grayish blue, and a little more white under the tail. But she looks, let's say it's more subtle. Yeah, that's a word.
And is there a really noticeable breeding and non-breeding plumage?
I've never noticed it too striking a difference, but it is my goal this year to try to find one to see one when it's molting and in that different plumage before it goes back. Because my sightings go from where I'm at in central Illinois, I can see them from about May 8th all the way through about July 16th. And then all of a sudden they just disappear. Their behavior changes. They're getting that molt going before they head back. And they get real secretive, and they're not broadcasting that call. They're not out defending the territory anymore. They're wrapping up the rearing of the young and settling down before they head back to Columbia. It's a real difference. It's just amazing how the phenology of how they change.
Jarod, people around the world will probably not know how Australia just doesn't have seasons. We say we do. We say we do, but we don't, right?
Right.
The very fact that you can nominate a date where migratory birds will turn up or nick off, it is amazing. Mate, May 8th, I have to look at my calendar and go, May. Yeah, what happens in May? Not Easter. Not Easter, but it's not yet really cold. We just don't have that kind of variation in the extreme, and also the regularity of the changes that you have in America. And it means that we don't appreciate the scope of the migration that you have with not just seabirds and whatnot, but just your normal land birds that are hanging around your gardens. You only get them for a period of, in some cases, only a period of weeks to appreciate them, a matter of months. Give listeners, especially our sort of temperate and tropical listeners from Australia, and I'm guessing that large parts of Southeast Asia have their land birds that are like this, where they're just around and you see them all the time. How much do you wait for these migrants to come back, to arrive again? Are you getting excited when you know they're on their way?
Oh, for sure. Now, I don't know, how popular is eBird in Australia? Do you guys mostly use bird data?
I'm not really big on the apps. What tends to happen is that we'll be using them for particular surveys. Some people will be a bird data one, but BirdLife run garden bird surveys, and then we have our sort of annual survey, and I think most of that goes into bird data. But eBird's the big daddy on the block, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. And that's what I've been looking at, this Birdcast, where they have the radar with the migrants, and they're expecting about 3,000 birds to fly over our county, and they even had a list on what birds we should be on the lookout for. It's nice.
I must admit, I get it. Look, the only time I ever wish I was in America is when I see this stuff popping up on Twitter and I see these amazing visuals. And aren't we lucky now that all this great citizen science data is now being able to be represented in a way that's really easy for us to interpret for ourselves?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's how I got involved. I think you can tell that I am not a zoologist, not a biologist, not an ornithologist. I am an enthusiastic bird booster because of what the technology has let us do here by tracking this data and the life list with all the sightings. How would I remember May 8th if it wasn't for the eBird reminded me that it was May 8th was the earliest I've ever seen one.
I just love that you've got that date fixed in. Where I live, Jarod, is outer suburban, nothing special, relatively recent housing developments, and by relatively recent I mean maybe the last 30 years. But I notice the bird movements that we get here, and they're mostly altitudinal, the ones that I notice. I'm not saying that there aren't others, but I notice our birds, the currawongs, who are corvids, related to our Australian magpie and the crows. Currawongs are essentially big black birds with some white markings and yellow eyes. But they flock, and they have a very unusual call. But we only get them in my area in winter, when winter sets in and they have come down from the mountains. And here in Australia, we call them mountains. In the US, you would call them hills.
I'm in Illinois. There's no mountains or hills. So.
Trust me, if an Australian was in Illinois, we'd probably find a mountain, mate.
About that.
And we'd find some unimportant local settler to call it Mount something.
No, I hear you on that one. But I guess when I first saw one of these warblers,
Oh, that's right, birds. Sorry.
Birds, yeah.
Birds.
I was at my cousin's wedding in St. Louis, and we were out there. There was a park along the Missouri River, and it showed up right in the trees. And that was the first time I ever saw one. And that's when my mind started ticking.
How old were you how old were you, Jarod, when you had your first?
Yeah, I was old. This would have been, now I remember the date. It was June 1st, and it would have been 2019. So I would have been, 38 years old when I first saw one. And I'd never seen one. I thought just the name was hard to pronounce. It just looked so tropical. I just kept thinking, well, I'd have to go to the Florida Everglades or some bayou to find a bird like this. I had no idea they were so close to home. No clue. I truly didn't.
Were you a bird nerd before that?
Yeah, I came back to it when I was a kid. I was so interested. We would have reading time at the library, and I would always grab the Peterson Field Guide.
Go and get the bird, lie down in quiet corner.
You get it, yeah. And that's where I've had it for years, this passion.
So which sparrow is your favorite?
Oh, the sparrows? Oh, the one I really want to see is the Bachman sparrow, but it's another southern. It doesn't live in Illinois anymore. It's gone.
Let's tease this out. If bird names for birds was the law, if the Constitution said bird names for birds, what would you call Bachman sparrow?
Pine Woods sparrow.
The Pinewood sparrow.
And now
that you had a name.
I love these old timey names for birds, though. It's a hobby, is figuring out what old names people called them by. It just makes me smile. The other one I really like that we have in Illinois that I don't know if you have in Australia. Do you have Eurasian tree sparrows?
We do. Yeah. Actually, for the regular listeners of the show will have heard me say this a number of times, but the whole reason that I started the Bird Emergency was because when I was a kid, the house sparrow and the tree sparrow were the two introduced sort of pesty birds around here, along with starlings and blackbirds and the Indian myna. But house sparrows were really common everywhere in the urban area, and it was unusual to see tree sparrows. They were you had them, but there weren't that many of them. And I started to notice that the sparrows were becoming uncommon, and I started to think, why is that? I would have thought that everything was going in their favour and they're becoming more common. So I started to think about this, and I looked around and found out that, birds everywhere are disappearing. And then about this time, I went to the Philippines for the first time, and that was to visit a family that I'd helped, and that's a whole different story, after they had a super typhoon. And I turned up in Davao, and I'm looking around, and there were sparrows everywhere, but they were tree sparrows, not sparrows. And then as I went out into the provinces, I kept seeing sparrows who were actually acting like wild birds, not domesticated, urbanized pests. And I thought, sparrows are pretty cool, And then, then I went and I did some interviews, but I did them really badly instead of taking proper equipment, I did them on my phone and lost all the recordings from back then. But sparrows are what made me think about this whole idea of the bird emergency, the fact that the commonest birds around us are disappearing. Not that the rarest birds are disappearing, the fact that the pest species are having a hard time. But I'm jealous of you guys with all your sparrows. So many kinds of sparrows. They are just finches after all, but amazing variety.
Oh, you're right about that. And You said it too. The juncos are getting ready to leave. They're considered a sparrow as well. So they're getting ready to head out. So when they leave, then the Prothonotary Warbler will show up and we'll be good. Even keel there.
So hang on. So are the juncos going in one direction and the are going the other direction? Like there's one.
Actually, the juncos they're going north to Canada.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they're going way other way.
Okay. So the juncos are going north. So this is what I've never even thought about this. But as some birds are heading south for the winter, are there actually birds coming up to basically rent their holiday homes?
Yeah,
okay.
That's the best way I've ever heard it said.
Okay.
Yeah.
So bird Airbnb is going on. I'd always just thought they're all nicking off. Only the resident species are going to be hanging around in the cold northern winter. But there's actually birds doing the reverse trip and making use of all those warbler cabins that have been left alone for the winter.
And I think you probably already know this about the Prothonotary Warbler.
Don't you dare presume that I know, so probably don't.
They're the only warbler species east of the Mississippi that nest in birdhouses or nest cavities, or you probably knew that one.
No, I didn't know about the geography, but I did know that and was where I was eventually going to get to. One of the reasons that there is so much pressure on the population of Prothonotary warblers is because they nest in hollows or crevices or whatnot. So they're a hollow nesting bird, and regular listeners of the show know that big on what we have to do with providing artificial hollows in Australia, because no doubt you guys do the same thing. Oh, look, there's a big tree. That'll have some good timber in it. Let's cut it down. Or the other thing we have, oh, look, there's a big tree in the neighbourhood. Maybe it will be dangerous. We'd better cut it down. Mm-hmm. Is that what's happening over there?
Oh, yeah. I think there's getting to be a little more awareness on this issue, and that's why it's important to work with your local governments, your park districts. And I'm going to take us back a little bit, but when Dutch elm disease was a thing and all those trees were dying, these park districts, I'm not blaming park districts, but a lot of people wanted these dead trees cleared out. And I think that's when you started seeing the decline in the numbers of the prairie warbler. It coincided with this need to remove dead trees. And
is that the ice cream truck? Or?
We're hitting the top of the hour.
Oh, no, I thought it was Mr. Whippy.
Yeah, I should have turned the volume down on that one. My bad. No, well, but there was a need to, like you said, remove dead trees, clear them out, and then the population started to decline. And that's why the nickname willow warbler is associated with this bird, partly because willows grow in these wet areas where these birds tend to hunt, glean insects, nest. So willows grow there, but also willows are real fragile trees and break and have knots in them. And so it's easy for these birds to, like you said, use the hollow in the tree to nest. And that's where we came in. With COVID and the lockdown, I was trying to find something to do with the kids. And that was the easiest thing, was to make these juice carton nest boxes. We take 2 milk cartons, cut them up, and then make one birdhouse out of the 2. And we started putting them up. In the very first box we put out, I talked to the park district first, and they said, yep, you can go ahead and put it out there. And it was all flooded. It was April 15th. It was tax day. I remember that. I put it up at the very first house we put up. The Prothonotary Warbler nested in it, and we couldn't believe that.
Okay.
Out of the
now, let me stop you there. First, listener, how cool is this? Jarod remembers that he puts up his warbler house on tax day, 3 weeks before May 8th, which I can't remember why May 8th was important. That's pretty bloody astounding. But tell us about the warbler house nest box that you're making. I think you have your milk cartons in quarts, don't you?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But there's all kinds. It's a fluid ounces.
Yeah, but I think 600 mil or something like that, I think, is about the same equivalent size here. So are they the Tetra Pak top ones with?
Yes.
You're right. Okay. So we're talking about the same kind of thing. So you just cut the triangle top off and then force one into the other and cut a hole in. Yes.
And then the bottom's like a little roof flap on there. Yeah. It's a pretty seamless process, but as soon as I understood it takes 2 cartons to make 1 house, then it was easy peasy. And then put the drain holes in the bottom, because these areas where these birds nest flood quite a bit and all the rain, and you have to have the drain holes. If you don't have the drain holes, then you got a problem.
Okay. And do you then go and sight them? Do you just basically wedge them in a fork or something like that? Is that?
Yeah, I've done that, and then I use electrical tape. I couldn't get a permit to put them on steel post in the park, so you take what you can get. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
But folks, I'm all about just doing something, just do something. So I'm assuming that it's not only Prothonotary Warblers who would like to find a house like this. Opportunities that don't exist. So to make a difference, it's as easy as getting 2 milk cartons or fruit juice cartons. I assume that you put fruit juice in them as well in the States.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Cut the top off, each one, force one into the other, put some drain holes in the bottom, assign a top and a bottom, and then cut a hole in so the bird can get in.
Yes, I trace the cap from the juice carton because they can squeeze right in and out. So I just use that.
Just something like that. And then it's as easy as going out and finding somewhere where you can just stick this contraption in a fork or in a broken bit of a tree, anything you can find, probably crevice in a wall or in anything like that, and you can actually provide a house for it. Probably not only a bird. I guess you've got critters.
I know, I keep hoping to get one of those flying squirrels. That'd be neat, but not yet. It hadn't happened yet.
Now, Katie has just asked a question on Facebook, and I reckon you just told us the answer. What diameter hole do... Hey, they've even got a slang name. Proths, what do they use? So you trace the hole. There we are. Oh, here we go. Jarod's holding it up. Okay, so that's... The hole is about the size of, I'm guessing, our 50-cent piece here in Australia. There we are. So it's just the same as the lid on the top of the bottle, which is the top. Okay, fantastic. Jarod, I'm guessing you've got some photos and maybe a video or something of this that you show me at some stage that I can add on the... Yeah, great. Katie, thebirdemergency.com. At some stage in the near future, I'll have some visuals for you to check out.
Oh, for sure. Grant, I got to ask, do you think this design would work with any cavity nesting or secondary cavity nesting bird in Australia? I don't know if it would. It might. I don't know.
I think the problem, it probably would. There'd probably be species that would use that. But I think the problem that people have where they're providing artificial hollows and opportunities in Australia is that many of the birds won't use them in the first season. So they need to get used to them being in the environment. But the birds that will use them are our invasive pest species like the starling and the myna and whatnot. Now, these would be too small for them, but I'm pretty sure that the sparrows would have a crack.
Right. I did have a Eurasian tree sparrow nest in one. That was the only bird that size. You're right. That can happen. That did happen one time.
Now, I should know this, being a member of Bird Nerd Official. Eurasian tree sparrows, are they introduced or are they have they established themselves naturally in the States?
That's a story. There was in 1870, some German immigrants brought them over and released them in St. Louis. And it took forever. We're talking 1870 to just in the last couple years, they made it to my parents' house south of Springfield, Illinois. So, I mean, it's been a slow progression.
And do you have the house sparrow as well? Or is
the house sparrow. And that's what we had out at the family farm when I was a kid. It was always house sparrows. But now, within, like I said, the last 3 to 4 years, they've had the Eurasian tree sparrow. I like them. The little black cheeks, the chestnut cap, they're neat looking.
Yeah, well, certainly the tree sparrow is the handsome cousin.
Yes.
Just come in from Jeffrey Fickers on, I hope I got your name there right, Jeffrey Fickers. House wrens will nest in your nest design, Jarod?
Yes. He is correct. That is our biggest competitor with the warbler is house wren.
Jeffrey, if you wouldn't mind, stick in the comments. Let us know whereabouts are you. What I'm assuming you're in the US, but let us know. And if you've used those for warblers, let's see how people have gone with using that. I think that's a fantastic use of resources. They're only going to last one year, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I've tried to use them 2 seasons and it didn't pan out as well. I used the ones that the old ones I used. What do you call it? Suboptimal habitat. Is that what you say?
Hey, I don't say that. Scientists say things like that. I'd probably say something like,
I kind of set you up on that one.
You know me too. All right, let's talk about the Proth. Jeffrey's in Illinois as well, so there we go. Now, I'm getting into Katie's slang here. Proths. When they're nesting, I've got a couple of questions. Are they fiercely territorial around where they decide to nest? Are they monogamous? And what's an average clutch size, do you think, Jarod? I'm not asking you to bet the farm on this, but what have you observed?
Yeah, highly territorial. I watched, this was the most interesting behavior I saw was the female using the nest carton. She was gathering material. She was grabbing moss mostly and taking it to the carton while 2 males were darting and displaying and trying to scare the other one off. And she was completely ignoring both of them. I thought that was, she just kept building her nest. And I had the 2 males. So there was 3 at the same time and the 2 males were just going at it. And she just acted like nothing was. So I'm sure one of them left and then one stayed. They're highly territorial. A male Prothonotary Warbler will defend a size about an acre and a half in our area.
Okay.
And down south, where there's more of them, it's about half an acre they'll defend.
Okay, so for those of us in Australia, let's see whether our housing blocks are about the same. Is that about 4? That would be you and 3 neighbours?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, that's about right.
Pretty similar in terms of the standard block.
Mm-hmm.
No, well, nowadays, that would have been 4 families when I was a kid. Nowadays, it's probably 16 families in our medium density urban revolution that we're all to live in. So, based on that observation that you just gave us about the males defending a territory, but the female is selecting the nest box site. So that makes me wonder, is she actually the resident female in the territory, and that these 2 fellas think it's their territory, and that then she's going to choose one of them? She's already got the territory?
Oh, I think you're exactly right. And it's important because whichever male she winds up with will help feed the nestlings once they hatch. So both, even though she's the one building the nest and doing the incubation, he sticks around defending that territory, and then he'll feed the young ones once they hatch. Both of them will feed, and then he'll feed her on the nest.
I can't resist. I've got to have a cultural American dig. You know what happens to the other?
What's that?
He then identifies as an incel and joins QAnon.
I think he moves to Ontario because that's what they're saying in Canada, that all the 37% of the male Prothonotary warblers there can't find a mate. So I think they just they keep going and then they can't find anything. Just keep heading north.
He moves to Canada and buys all of Jordan Peterson's books.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And what was the other question you asked?
I don't know. I'm on a roll. Dear listener, if you're offended by that, fuck off.
Yeah.
I have to edit that now. I can't leave that on in the podcast.
I'll take that one off. But you asked about clutch size.
Birds.
So second year females typically lay 4 eggs. Yeah. And all the nests I've checked, all of them had 4 eggs in it. I've never seen more than 4 eggs.
And how about full hatchings?
Yeah, we've had at least 3 last year.
Okay. And fledging? Do half of them to 50% make it to fledging, do you think?
Yes. Yes. They're really hard to check, though, because what happens is those riverbanks flood and getting out there. I've had a heck of a time trying to observe. But there was a female feeding two last August. So that was an encouraging sign. So, but I checked the boxes and saw little eggs under there, and typically it's always been 4. Up north, supposedly some nest boxes could get up to 7 or 8 or 9, but there's one theory out there
that'd have to be multiple females, wouldn't it?
You're birds. Yeah, they think something happened, and then another female used that nest box too, like an egg dumping that ducks do. They
go, why bother shitting on these bloody things? I'll just dump them in here, and that idiot can do the work.
That's the sound theory.
Yeah. How about cuckoos?
Oh yeah, see, we have brown-headed cowbirds.
I forget that cowbirds are parasitic. I always forget that.
That's a problem. In Illinois, the rate is about 25% of all nests will have a cowbird egg in them.
Okay, and cowbirds typical, like true cuckoos, do they evict the rest of the chicks?
That can happen. Yeah, definitely. That's another reason I got interested in this and how I came up with the carton design. The Illinois Natural History Survey has been doing this carton trail boxes in the southern part of the state for the last 30 years. And they did a study they had the entrance hole a little bigger so a cowbird could get in it. And then they had the entrance hole smaller where they changed it. And they showed that did you see this already? How the cowbird would retaliate against the warbler that wouldn't sit on the egg. If it rejected the egg, the cowbird went and smashed up all her eggs in the nest.
Really?
It's on. You have to watch that. It's look up Mafia Birds on. Yeah, you'll see it in YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. The cowbird needs to be a star of effing birds, I would have thought.
Yeah, I think they had a reputation of being lazy, but there's a lot of cognitive ability there to figure out, hey, she rejected my egg. Now I'm going to mess up her nest. So maybe next time she better get along and go along with what we're doing here.
So not only QAnon, but cowbirds are Republicans. Holy! Yeah. Oh, I'm really going out on a limb today, Jarod. I'll tell you what.
This is gold.
I don't think I've got too many Republican subscribers.
You're fine.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I was interested in the apart from how mental you all go over your warblers and whatnot, especially ones in Central Park. And yes, Katie, I take that on board that cowbirds do not deserve that slander. I'm sorry. I apologise to all cowbirds if anybody found my comments to be insulting. There we go. Isn't that the way you've got to pretend apologise these days? If any cowbirds happen to be offended, I'm very sorry that you were offended. It was only brown-headed cowbirds too that we were talking about, not any of the others. So I'm not maligning cowbirds in general. But the Prothonotary Warbler, I think in the last 30 years or the last 50 years, that their population is estimated to have declined by 25%.
Oh, yeah. I think there were some estimates that went down about 40%. It was a lot. And I like you were talking about, little development here, put in need to, clear a forest, put in a golf course or subdivision or clear out some. Yeah, that didn't help. That's what started the decline. And then on their wintering grounds, too, with some of the draining of mangroves in Colombia.
And that's why we need to be a bit flexible in our thinking when we are thinking about, birds, but pretty much any of our environments, is that they're all interconnected. And not only in your local area do you have the edge effect and things like that, where something you do here, you think it's only affecting 4 hectares, but then you've got the edge effect, so it's actually 15 hectares that gets altered, and then because that's altered, it turns into 70 hectares. Never-ending story. But these birds, if you're giving them a hard time in Canada or in New York State, and then the Colombians are knocking off their mangroves to build a factory or another golf course or a hotel development for Ivanka and Jarod to go and spend their spend their holidays. The bird's copping it at both ends. So we really need to, this is the depressing part of this show, Jarod. We really need to do more to help these fellas out.
Yes.
Because if they're cutting down the mangroves at the other end, it doesn't matter how many nest boxes you put up. You know, you and your kids can make 200 of them and go and put them out over a couple of weekends and think, yeah, we're really helping out. But then the poor little buggers have their four eggs, and they, you know, maybe they manage to have a great year, and there's heaps of aphids and things like that, katydids and all that kind of stuff.
I was going to ask you, do you know in Australia, are you familiar with mangroves or?
Yeah. Funnily enough, where I grew up, we had the southernmost mangroves in the world.
Is that right? I'm trying to ask you what kind of insects. Would it be like midges or mayflies? Or I'm trying to get a visual on what they'd be feeding on.
I reckon in mangroves there'd be a lot of just basic flies and wasps and things like leaf hoppers, things like that. I don't know if we've all got the same kind of common names, but I imagine they eat things like thrips and whatnot too. They're very small, but I imagine that they just...
Yeah, I got a good visual now, because that's what I was wondering. Because one of these days, like I said, I'd love to take this full circle and go to Colombia just to see it once, but that's down the road. I'll probably go to Australia before I go to Colombia. So
Colombia, Costa Rica. You know, Jarod, I'm trying to design my life. In the next 12 months, I want to redesign my life so that I can spend the rest of my life traveling around, and instead of doing this remotely, that I can sit down with a bird nerd somewhere and talk about the birds, and then I can piss off and go to the next place. And that it doesn't matter if I never come back to this desk again, that every day I just go somewhere and talk to a bird nerd. That's simple needs, you know.
I can't think of... Well, put me on that list. I'll pick you up from the airport. That'd be fun.
And of course, we have to offset the plane emissions and all that.
I'm pretty rural, so I still drive, but I can't remember. You sold your car, didn't you?
I got rid of my car in, I think, 2014. I think, yes. Hey, you've been listening to the podcast, Joe.
Oh, it's a good show. Everybody needs to listen.
Yeah, I'm a pretty extreme example of what people can do, and I didn't set out for that. I just didn't need, you know, I used to be an accountant, and of course, to do your tax, what was it? May, did you say?
April 15th.
April 15th. It's June 30 here, end of our financial year. But, you know, always advising people, do your records, you know, to keep records. So I thought I'll just work out over, I think I did it over 4 months, I think it was, how often I actually needed my car. Not that I used it, but I looked at every one of those trips that I did for my tax and thought there were only 2 times where I could not have used either public transport or walked.
Wow.
So I thought, let's extend that over a year. Let's say 10 times a year I have to call a cab. Whoopee-doo, you know? And so that was what I did. And, you know, anyone who drives a car knows how much it costs to keep one going. So, yeah, it's a lot easier to not have one. The only thing I do think is that on weekends, I sometimes wish that I could just jump in a four-wheel drive and go somewhere. But then I think, when I had a four-wheel drive, how often did I do that? And guess what? It was nearly never, because we don't live lives that allow us to go, fuck it, today I'm going to the little desert.
Right.
Because most of us don't live that life. Nowadays I do. Nowadays I can go, what do I have to do today? I tell you what, all I have to do today is email Jarod and tell him I'm not bloody doing the interview because I'm bird watching. That's how complicated my life is now. And I don't even try and get an episode out every Monday, because guess what? Fuck that. I've got other things to do. Have a nap.
Mm-hmm. I think you've done everything right. I do. That's just it. We're in a different phase. 4 children, so we're running here and there with track practice.
And that's why I'm never preaching to anyone else that my life needs to be your life. Because guess what? I don't have kids, and I'm not against them. Sometimes it just doesn't happen, that you just don't end up with that person and whatnot. And I'm also not divorced. So, you know, again, judging anyone else, anything like that. People have different lives, and you have to live the life that you have. I just don't want anyone to be a bloody environmental vandal at the same time. So you can make some choices that are less harmful. None of us in modern society lives a life where we aren't being harmful. You know, we just need to be a little bit less harmful. And I want the Prothonotary Warbler to still be there when, thanks, Katie, she said I need to go to Lake Erie in May. Yeah, let's hope that there's some... Katie, are there loons on Lake Erie? Because I want to see a loon. I want to hear a loon. I want to hear that you hear on all the Netflix, you know, spooky...
No, that's the one thing I've heard. She's right. If you go anywhere in the United States, it's Northwest Ohio in May by Lake Erie. And there's 35 different warbler species that travel through here regularly. You can catch most of them that week.
Jarod, I was going to ask about, and of course, loons are migrating through right now. Thanks, Katie, for telling me that. And I'm about to drop a loons episode on the... I spoke to Kristen Bianchini about loons, so I've got a loon episode coming. But warblers, you said the 35 species coming through your neck of the woods, Illinois, Jarod.
Yeah.
But how many of the warblers can someone, if they were having a massive birdwatching trip through the States, how many warblers have you got?
Oh, like
50, 100?
Oh, I'd say, you mean on one trip?
Oh, no. But if you get your bird book, grab your Sibleys.
Oh, I had Sibley.
Man, you've listened to the show. You know what questions come up at the end.
Yes. But 35 regularly occur, warblers. Let's see here.
In Illinois or in the States? Illinois.
I'm trying to give you an example. Oh, there's all the sparrows. You like the sparrows, though, better than the warblers, don't you?
Oh, look, I'm not birdist. I don't.
Yeah, that gives you, there's a lot. There's a lot.
That is a lot.
I'd say on a good list, you could get 20 during a good week in migration in May. You could get, I'd say you could see 20, but a lot of them stay way up in the canopy, and you have to have your binoculars. I use, 10 buys.
How would you like me to give you a very birdist Australian geographical bird nerd joke?
Oh, I love that.
Ooh, you've got nearly as many warblers as we've got in the grass parrot genus in Australia, let alone how many parrots we've got, fella.
A lot of parrots. A lot. What binoculars do you use? I got to ask that.
I have a very old Pentax 10 by 50s with a dodgy eye. I'm actually in the market for a new one. Katie, I love Katie already now. 52 regularly occurring species in the US, plus some specialty species in the Southwest. I think specialty means vagrant. Would that be right? Mm-hmm. I like how Katie is referring to warblers as if it was a pizza menu, a specialty species. And look, before we turn the mic on, this is a bit of a ramble today, Jarod. This is great. I mentioned to you that I've got an episode coming up with David Tan about migratory pitters in Singapore, but David's studying in that magical part of the Southwest in Arizona where heaps and heaps and heaps of different birds are passing through and living as well. It seems like that sort of Southwest and then your sort of lakes area are the real hotspots for birders.
Oh, yeah, I'd agree. And he would have, in Arizona, he'd have the other cavity nesting warbler. There's only two. So we have the Prothonotary Warbler in the east.
Is the other one using the cactus? Is that?
Yeah, you're right. The Lucy's warbler. And the nest boxes they build are like a weird looking open triangle shelf thing. They'll use that or a cactus. Yeah, you're right.
And are they using the cactus after the woodpecker has done the work and pissed off? Is that right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, there we are. That's my Australian vernacular for moved on.
No, you are a biologist. Yeah.
When you're as old as me, if you haven't learnt something by the amount of time I spend looking at nature documentaries, I'm doing something wrong.
Oh, no, you're doing everything right.
David Attenborough, thank you very much.
Yeah. You're the Australian version of Attenborough for sure.
And I like the other David Suzuki. I'm a big pal of his. And And he's the Canadian, isn't he? So he counterbalances the damage that Canada has done to the world through Jordan Peterson.
You're right. I love these references.
Sorry. And Justin Bieber,
I'm trying to think, what would you say would be an equivalent species to what New World warblers are in Australia? Because I know in Europe and Africa you have those reed warblers and there's different kinds, and they're more brown looking.
It depends on, I would look at it not so much in terms of what the birds look like, but maybe the niche that they have. And I'm thinking of maybe the Prothonotary and the wood warbler. In a way, it might be what we call the tree creepers, which kind of do what I think your nuthatches, that they up and down the trees or whatnot, but that they will nest in those crevices, and not necessarily a complete hollow, but will make you a crevice, and that just moving up and down trees and just taking every insect that they find. There's the whole lot. But then we do have honey eaters. Despite their name, a lot of them are insectivores as much as nectar feeders, so they'll do both. But we do have warblers, and we have a whole bunch of birds like whistlers, thick heads. Some of them we even call robins. They're all very similar in terms of what they eat, but not necessarily in the way they go about it.
I think that's what you're getting at with the wood warblers. Let's just talk about the east of the Mississippi, the 35. You're right. They all fill a different niche. They all act so differently. And they like you said, they show up at different times. Some stay, some keep going, some come back down. But like the black and white warbler, it climbs a tree like a creeper or a nuthead, not backwards, but it looks, it acts in that fashion.
I think that's what our tree creepers and our satellas do. But they're also different sizes, so I'm guessing they got different prey as well. And then, a lot of the birds are our omnivores. They're not specialist feeders as well. What can we say? They're just they're just amazing, aren't they?
Absolutely.
We love them.
I was wondering too, so you said that, what is it? BirdLife does a garden survey. So these would be species you would see on your garden surveys then.
Yeah. Now, do a plug for the show. Last year, and I think the year before, I did the wrap-up of the results of the Aussie Backyard Bird Count, they call it, with Tegan Douglas. Last year was a 2-part episode where we went through the top 5 in each state and whatnot. So that happens every year, but also BirdLife through Holly Parsons, who I do the Monday Megaphone things with. Holly's teamed backyard surveys as well, which are not, they don't run with the Aussie Backyard Bird Count. They're different. The one's like a national 1-week bird count. But we also have surveys for particular regions and particular birds that are always ongoing, similar to I guess, Audubon and whatnot are doing them as well, I'm guessing, in the States. And Birds Canada had their bird count. India had one this year that I know. New Zealand have just wrapped up theirs. I think they're happening everywhere, so I'd love to talk about them more and more and more and more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So do you guys, this will be my first time I'm conducting one, but I'm doing a breeding bird survey where I have to go and listen for these different birds calling, and that's how they get some of the statistics on, like the Prothonotary Warbler. So that's coming up. That's interesting. And then I do the Christmas bird count. I'm a compiler, so I didn't know if you guys have. Do you have a Christmas bird count there?
No, we're all. I'll tell you why a Christmas bird count won't work in Australia. One, we eat too much on Christmas Day. Boxing Day is a huge thing here. Boxing Day is the day where all you do is eat leftovers and lie on the couch, sleeping it off. It's so usually stinking bloody hot, so it might be 38 degrees, okay? And on Boxing Day, the cricket starts. Now, just imagine if every year the World Series Game 1 started on Boxing Day. That's the cultural place that you're in. But the main thing is, it's Christmas holidays. most of Australia, because it's summertime, shuts down on Christmas Eve. This is a bit traditional in that it was certainly when I was a kid and whatnot, that until the 26th of January, nothing bloody happens. Everyone's at the beach. Everyone's going to the cricket. Everybody's having family arguments and realising why they didn't talk to their family for the last 50 weeks because we have to spend 2 weeks with them in January. There's my pessimistic view of the world.
Right. It's a non-starter, isn't it? I'm following you.
It's really hot. It's the time that everybody's off for that month. Right. Nearly everybody, flexible. The wonderful world of flexible work means that not everyone's as lucky nowadays, but it's still pretty much a thing. And that if you've got a beach house or you've got a tent or whatever, you've pissed off and you've gone to the country, you've gone to the beach, you've gone to whatever. So people just aren't in their normal, in the hood. They're not in the hood.
Right. You know? No, I get it. And that's why when you're saying how hot it is, these Prothonotary Warbler nest boxes, all this field work I'm out doing, it's perfect because migration's over.
Yeah.
Everything else is gone. These birds stay. It's miserable hot. It's really gross. There's mosquitoes everywhere. I'm wearing waders and boots and checking these in forest, and it's just something to do. It's the perfect thing to do.
Well, let's talk about your hood. You know, Springfield, Illinois, famous for Bart Simpson's. Although we don't actually know if the Simpsons.
It's close enough.
We don't actually know. They never solved that issue for us. But what are the cool? Apart from the Prothonotary Warbler, what are the cool birds for you? What are the birds that you really love in your neighborhood?
Boy, I'm just now getting interested in shorebirds, and I think it was seeing an American avocet that did it. Yeah, that's a neat, stunning bird.
From memory, your avocet is black and white. Is that right?
Yeah, with the little kind of orange, it's pretty, and it's got the upturned bill. It's a neat bird.
Yeah.
They've been showing up, and then I think my spark bird where I started listing was a belted kingfisher. I love kingfishers. Yeah.
Now, have you got phalaropes?
Yep. Yeah, I've never seen one. I heard tell they do happen, but I have not seen one. I hope to. Like I said, I'm dabbling into shorebirds a little bit. I'm getting there.
Yeah, shorebirds is a whole new world, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's you gotta love them. And so I'm trying to think of what else we have that you'd be interested in. But
tell me at the moment. I've been talking to a lot of people about owls. What are your neighborhood owls?
Yeah, but the barred owl is the main one. Yeah. And then the eastern. Yeah, the great horned owl. Yes, we had one in our yard. That was cool.
Okay. So we've got barn owls. We've got a bunch of Tyto owls. But then we've got the small sort of foresty owls, which are
have you ever seen those northern saw-whet owls? They're tiny, little. Yeah, we have those.
Yeah, they're like the hummingbird of owls. But the great horned owl is like our big powerful owl. So powerful owls will take big possums here. Now your opossums are about probably half the size of our brushtails, maybe a third of the size of brushtails. So.
That's what I wanted to ask you. I was thinking about predation on warblers, and I haven't had any trouble with raccoons, but what animal would you have that'd be similar to a raccoon in Australia that would mess with birds' nest?
I think that would occupy that niche. Look, I'd have to say possums are probably the native animal that would cause the most trouble. We do have quolls, which are similar size to a cat, that hunt on the ground but are also arboreal as well. Will get in the trees. But they're really rare nowadays. Like, they're not a common sight. Obviously, the thing that is most troublesome is a cat.
Yeah.
But possums are known to predate birds' eggs and nests. But whether that is a normal behaviour or whether that's probably because we're creating other pressures other ways, I don't know. I wouldn't venture an opinion. I think birds are probably the predators of birds' eggs.
Oh yeah, we have a Cooper's hawk in the yard. And that happens. Probably the best bird I ever had in my yard was a lazuli bunting. They're usually seen way west. This was only the 7th bird, lazuli bunting, that's ever been documented in the state of Illinois. So that was a sight. People came from all over the state to see that one.
Now, buntings, are they like fill me in on the family? Yeah. I'm thinking that buntings are closely related to cardinals. Would that be?
Yeah, right? They're like little cardinals. You've probably seen the painted bunting. It looks like it's all blue, green, yellow, red. It's like your Gouldian finch. Is that what it has? That vibe to it. And then the lazuli bunting is blue, orange, and white. And then we have the indigo bunting, which is all blue, completely.
Which is super, super famous. But buntings, juncos of finches, is that right?
Yeah, they'd be in that sparrow finch family.
Okay, so where do buntings sit? Are they like thrushes? And
they're closer to that family. I'm trying to think. Let me grab my sibling. No,
actually, today my go-to expert is Katie Anderson on Facebook. Katie's just said we've got several unrelated birds called buntings. Some are related to cardinals, but snow buntings are like long spurs.
She's right.
Okay. Now, when I've seen long spurs, I've always thought that they're like pipits. That's what they remind me of.
Yeah, they hang out in the fields, and our horned lark, they're all in that same...
Or wagtails. You know, what you guys call wagtails. We don't call our wagtails are actually fantails over here.
And you're right, though. People travel from all over to see those Smith's longspurs that come through Illinois. So that's another good bird. Yeah. I have yet to see one. One of these days, it'll happen. I'll get it.
And of course, just remember, dear listener, every bird is a good bird.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can tell I didn't get into listing until late in life. I just love watching them. You know, I just carefree, just watch them. And then now that I list, I'm like on day 1,225 on consecutive eBird daily list. So for last 1,200 plus days, I've listed birds.
Jarod, I love that you did that, because one of the aims of my bird emergency questions are always to place you on the spectrum. Now, brother, you just sounded like you have opened up with your address to the meeting. How many days listing are you?
12.
Man, that is something to be celebrated. I have never had a guest who has been able to tell me that they have been filling in their list for however many days. So, fella, you are now at the extreme end of the spectrum.
You just never know what's out there. You got to list it. You got to put it down. It's like, oh, wow. Red-winged blackbird, saw it.
Jarod, have you heard about Bird a Minute?
No.
Okay. I will give you the link off air, but something tells me that you would enjoy your daily walk and you could be a serious competitor in Bird a Minute, I think.
Now I'm interested. I'm intrigued.
Competitive twitching is not necessarily part of your maintaining a list, but it is competitive. You will find the Bird a Minute on the YouTube page. I don't think I've published in the podcast feed, but it is certainly on the YouTube page, the interview about Bird a Minute. I think you would enjoy that. It's about how far you can get on your walk, seeing or hearing. You can only progress if you hear or see a new bird, and you must hear or see a new one within a minute to progress.
Got it.
So you see how far you can get and how many species you can rack up in that distance. But if you don't see or hear a new one in a minute, that's the end. So how far you can go. Now, in my area, the best I've done is 22 species getting around on my normal block.
That's pretty good.
But I don't reckon I could get any more if I went another 10 Ks. I think that's the best I can possibly do. So
I think that's pretty impressive. 22. I'd take that. Yeah.
But if I have to whittle it down to native species,
I'd be tough.
I can't get past 15. It gets a bit rough around here. And then it gets complicated, doesn't it?
No, that is definitely worth a little researching. So thank you. I'll look into that.
There's a spreadsheet, through the Facebook group that I think you could probably do pretty well. Katie's just said she could go miles in May, maybe 10 steps in January. Yeah, that's it. Katie, I'm assuming Katie is up on Lake Erie.
Oh, yeah,
Katie,
she's accurate.
Katie, tell us where you are. That might help us do more of a geography lesson. What's your favourite bird, Jarod?
Oh, you could probably guess what that one is.
It's the prawn.
Yeah, Prothonotary Warbler. The other one, this probably my second favorite's the dick sissel. I just love that bird. The dick sissel, you've heard of them, haven't you?
Jarod, have you ever seen the show Blackadder?
Oh, it's been years. I'm familiar. Yeah. I am familiar.
But can't you just see dick thistle being a word that they just say?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Tell me about Jarod. Tell me about your dick.
They're little meadow birds. They're like miniature meadow larks. They're in the cardinal family, and they're yellow with the black V. But they get on power lines and just sing dick sissel sissel sissel. Yeah, and the kids and I started a rare bird hotline, and we called it the Dick Sissel Dial, and we report all the. Do they still have those bird hotlines in Australia, or are they gone?
I still have. When you get a new computer and you just migrate your bookmarks across to everyone, here's what is along my bookmarks. First one, Gmail. Mm-hmm. Second one, my bank. Third one, LinkedIn. Fourth one, Facebook. Geez, that's old because I basically don't Facebook anymore. Yeah. But the next one, Eremaya. Do you remember Eremaya?
No.
Okay.
Explain this.
I'm clicking on Eremaya. I don't think it's still active, but I'll click on Eremaya. Oh, no. Hang on. I can't do that. Cancel that. I'm going to have to open a new book. New tab because it was just about to say, would you like to leave this page?
No, we can't end this. This is getting good.
Okay. Eremaya Birdlines was the interesting and unusual bird observations, BirdLife Australia. So it's basically been taken over by eBird. Let me just see. I'm going to click on BirdLife Victoria, and I think someone's still going here. Sunday the 17th, that would have been this month. So people are still using it. April 2022, Sunday the 17th. Simon Starr, who does run bird tours and whatnot. Hello, Simon, if you're listening. Double-barred finch in the Terek National Park. Swift parrots in Beaumaris. That was Dooley. That was Sean Dooley, who is Twitchathon on Twitter, but also BirdLife Australia luminary. Red-quested button quail. Yeah, so it's still going. So, but I think maybe Eremaya has been just squeezed into eBird. So there we go. So yes, I used to check that out every day and get all excited. But then I thought, instead of just looking at what other people are doing, why don't I just talk to them and interview them and
that's better
and get all the good feelings about the birds. So been very casual today, Jarod. I haven't even followed my script. But tell me, we know about your bucket list location because you told us about Colombia. What's your bucket list bird?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's several. We're going out to Colorado, and I really want to see a black-headed grosbeak, so hopefully I'll get that. But I'm trying to think of something really exotic.
It doesn't have to be exotic.
God, that's another one. That black-headed grosbeak could be pretty cool. Yeah, that's the one that I really want to see that. So we're going out there this summer. Hopefully we'll check that off the list.
How different do you think birding would be in Colorado compared to your home patch?
Oh, there are mountains there. Quite a bit different.
Proper mountains.
Proper mountains. This is a real mountains. Yeah. I've never been. I was wondering about like I said, we really love travel, and we're trying to visit all 102 counties in the state of Illinois. And we're at 92 now, so we have 10 counties left. And then we hope to visit all 50 states. And I almost have her talked in to visit in all 7 continents. That trip to Antarctica is a hard sell. But never know.
Oh, yeah. God, if I could afford it, I'd be going down to Antarctica like that.
Where does everybody go? Like the guest you have, do they all go? What is it called? The South Georgia Islands? Is that what they call it, or what?
Yeah. South Georgia, a lot of people have, a couple. You're good. So you've listened to with Steph Burrell, and also Steph Prince. When I talked to Steph Prince for the first time we did World Albatross Day, I think Steph had worked down on South Georgia as well.
Yeah, it sounds great. So that's another spot I'm interested.
Yeah, and I think for Australians, Macquarie Island is our sub-Antarctic possession, the government put a lot of energy into getting rid of the pests on Macquarie Island and using dogs as well as baiting and whatnot. So that was successful. So that's been good for those sub-Antarctic.
Don't you have a silver eye species that lives on that island?
I don't think there's a silver eye on Macquarie, but I think we've got silver eye in terms of the white eye.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I mean, we call it the silver eye, but the global terminology is more white eye. There's white eyes on Lord Howe and whatnot, but I don't think there's one on New Zealand. Have got a white eye. I think. Let me just check.
I've only seen them when we went to Kauai in the Hawaiian Islands. We saw a white. That was pretty impressive. I really like them.
This is going to be great for the podcast listener. I'm now looking up white. Holy bloody moly! You are absolutely. Oh, no. I put in Macquarie Island white eye, and I got the Christmas Island white eye. So that would have been my thought. That the Christmas Island and Macquarie and Lord Howe probably would be the Island. Maybe would be the one. So certainly we've got. I don't even know if. When I was a kid, we only had one kind of white eye, but I think that's now been split up into a couple.
Yeah, they go by weird names now. I can't think of what is it. This it's the Indian white eye, and then there's this white eye.
There's piles of them. I think the genetic work that we can do nowadays means that we're able to say, instead of just being geographic forms, different plumage, so we've actually got different species. Taiwan have got one. I think half the islands in Indonesia have probably got their. Yeah, super cool. Super cool. If you don't know, dear listener, white eye is just a tiny little, smaller than maybe 2/3, half the size of a canary. Marvellous little insectivorous passerine. So
the Prothonotary is it's bigger than the white eye.
Yeah, and see that? Here's me trying to throw in science terms. Passerine.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
There we go. Geez, Jarod, I think we'll have to do this again. Maybe I'm going to do a bit of homework about the migratory birds. And how about I thought about doing a bit of an extravaganza on World Migratory Day. Why don't you join me on World Migratory Migratory Bird Day, which I think is May 8th. I'm going to confirm that, because my calendar knowledge is not as good as yours, because I only know Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and then June 30th and New Year's Day. And that's not a hard one to remember. World Migratory Bird Day doesn't come up as 2022. Maybe is it May 14th or is it May 8th? Which one is it? It's May 14th. It's 2 times a year. I know. There's one in October, too, in there. Saturday, the 14th of May. There we go. That's 2022. So I'll put that on my list. I'll put your name there. And let's see who we can rustle. Maybe we can have a here we go. Yes. Katie again on the shores of Lake Erie in northwest Pennsylvania. Katie's chipped in with it, coincides with the biggest week this year. So that Katie might be busy. I was going to say we need to get her on this panel. I will reach out again to Terry. I know Terry he does a whole lot of other consulting work and whatnot, and he was busy last year. Hopefully he'll be busy for I think it was the September one last year. Hopefully he'll be all right. Okay. Katie, Lifer Pie. Katie's just put in sorry, podcast listeners, for me referring to the comments again. Lifer Pie. Katie, put something in the comments for me so that I can quickly work out what the hell Lifer Pie is. I'm guessing it's nothing like pumpkin or American pie. God help us. I think this episode is going to be a best of. I love it. Yeah. Maybe you know what I do with my rambling episodes. I just call them bonus episodes.
Oh, I think it's great. I think it's a bit entertaining. I've had a ball.
I've been impressed with how many people we've had just chipping in, which is what I really like.
Absolutely.
Probably. So we've done your destination, we've done your bucket list bird. I already know that your best bird is the Prothonotary Warbler, which we are supposedly talking about in this episode. Katie has just said any celebration food you have when you see a live bird.
Oh,
and Katie, I hope you mean that born in Northwest Ohio means that's where you were born, not where the concept of the life of pi was born. But you can never assume anything these days, so best to clarify that. Okay, so celebration food you have when you see a live bird. I feel like that is a whole other episode. It's not anything that I have even devoted ever a nanosecond of thought about ever before.
Oh, but I think we should.
But hey, it's like pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie is not a thing here, but you guys would die for it, I think.
Oh, absolutely. It's good. Yep. I actually baked one. It turned out great. One time, one and done. I did one good one, and that was it.
Even apple pies and apricot pies are a bit mental.
Yeah.
Pies are things that you put meat and gravy in with sauce, tomato sauce. And actually, while I'm on this rant, we used to have tomato sauce here, but now you can only buy bloody tomato ketchup. Thanks for nothing, Heinz, corporate bully boys. We quite like sauce. You know what we used to call a pie and sauce before it became pie and ketchup? Pie and dead horse, mate. A rhyming slang. I'll have a pie and dead horse, buddy. Actually, we never used to say buddy. It was always mate.
Mate.
So,
yeah, that's right.
bloody buddy. Where did that come from?
And do you still call...
I can't even say Jesus because I'll get killed over there too.
Do you still call British people palms or no?
Pommy bastards.
I always appreciated that one.
And that's who, on a really busy Boxing Day, that's who we're playing in the cricket here. It's us against the Poms. Every 4 years at the MCG. Have you heard about the MCG?
No.
It's like any one of your football stadiums or baseball fields, only 50 million times better.
I believe it.
Actually, huge too. I think our footy fields. Dear listener, if you'd like to kick out of the episode now, feel free. Jarod and I will just rap a little bit about cultural things. 100,000 is, I think it's 101,000 was the nominal size of our seating capacity of the MCG. How big are your stadiums?
Oh, not that. Isn't it 50,000?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Loser stadiums.
Yeah.
I got that from a president of yours. What kind of a shithole country would only have half a stadium, right? My God, I've got some editing to do on this one. Sorry, Katie. Sorry, Katie, if I've offended you. I don't know. It always amazes me, like, you guys are like the biggest bloody country in the world. So I don't expect you to actually give about anything else. But, hey, India and Australia have got fucking huge stadiums, right?
Oh, yeah.
So stop talking about Wanky Park, whatever Wanky Park. And, hey, how many countries are in your bloody World Series?
All right.
How many? Two. And I think the Japanese and the Koreans wouldn't mind being in, and maybe Cuba. So there would be 5. Right. In the second division of countries playing cricket, I think there's 10. That's only in the second division.
Oh, yeah. No, I believe. I never went when I went to Wales. I never went to a cricket match. I always wish I would have. We went to rugby and soccer.
What cricket isn't really Welsh. There is a team. There is a county team in Wales. I think it's only one. I think Glamorgan. Wales. See, Wales was conquered and invaded and subjugated by the English for hundreds of years. Wales fought against the English like the Scots for so long, Here we go. Katie's college football stadium holds 100,000. So that's a proper stadium.
That's good. Yeah, I didn't know. You could tell I just don't follow sport.
Football. And yeah. That's good to know, though, that there is proper stadiums, things other than football. You know, Bon Jovi could play there, Katie, and fill it out. I always laugh at, we're going to do stadium tours. Yeah, 30,000? That's a picnic. So,
Grant, I hope you put out a milk carton birdhouse and see if a budgie moves in. That'd be wonderful. But
that's a whole nother thing. Do please send me something, a video or something, if you making one or anything of that, and some pictures, and I'll whack them up. I might make that my plan before. Let's get this episode out quickly and edit it and all the stupid bits. Actually, no, I'm not even going to promise.
I believe it. Yeah. That's going to translate well on the podcast. This could be amazing.
Did you see on Twitter that someone got very upset when I said something about a cat the other day?
No. What are your thoughts on that? Do you want to talk about that?
Look, I don't mind talking about it, because I don't care if people want to have cats, and I don't hate cats. But if your cat is out there killing native animals and native birds because you either can't afford to enclose it or you don't want to enclose it, sorry, I don't give a shit about your cat. I don't want anyone to be mean to your cat. I don't want anyone to be cruel to your cat, but I do want it removed from the environment. That's...
Yeah, I was curious, what's the policy, what's been going on, and are you in Melbourne?
Yeah, I'm in Melbourne. A lot of councils here in Melbourne have a rule where you can only own a cat. I think just about every council in Australia now. It has to be registered, and it has to be desexed unless you are a registered breeder, and it must have a microchip. A lot of councils are moving towards saying you must have your cat enclosed and have standards for what that enclosure must be like. But a lot of people are railing against that, because why should I put a roof over my yard? You know, why should I? Right. Well, I think, why why should you have seatbelts, you know? Now, this person got really upset because I put a joke in. I was talking to one of the guys on Twitter who watches the Powerful Owls in Brisbane, sees them regularly and updates about them. And I asked him, he was talking about what they've been eating, and I asked, and it was a serious question, had he seen them taking any cats? Because it's actually something I've talked about to other owl people about. Mm-hmm. And he said, no, I haven't, but the tone of the answer was because nobody would be irresponsible enough to have their cats out at night. You know, because nobody would be that kind of stupid, irresponsible pet owner, would they? And then I repeated something that my uncle used to say to me, and my uncle was a really, really, really serious conservationist in the 1960s, started a couple of public community bodies that turned into very significant conservation organisations.
Oh, wow. That's a whole nother show there. We need to talk about.
You know, he's dead now, but when it wasn't popular to be a conservationist, he was a conservationist. Yeah. When the police had special files on you, we had a thing called Special Branch here in Victoria, where they followed subversives. And two of my uncles went missing. A car broke down. One of their cars broke down on a trip in the mountains. We call them mountains. You call them hills with forests on them here. But anyway, when the police were looking for them, one of my cousins noticed that one of my uncles had a file in the police station with his name on it, which was several inches thick, because he'd been under surveillance for 20-odd years because he was a conservationist. He was a very radical. Anyway, he had a saying that the only good cat was a dead cat. And I just replied to Nick and said, yeah, my uncle had a saying, the only good cat was a ... cat. And this, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, took from that I was implying being cruel to cats. No, I wasn't. Or harm to cats. No. But in the Australian wild environment that we live in, I don't want cats. I don't want water buffaloes. I don't want brumbies. I don't want these invasive species. I don't want cotoneasters. I don't want hawthorns, because they're out competing out native species. And hey, there's little enough of them left that the last thing we need is like when I was a kid, when everyone just fed their cat outside and people, where's Moggy? I don't know. I haven't seen Moggy this morning. Has Moggy come home? I don't know. I don't think it's cute when a cat brings you in a robin and dumps it at your feet while you're eating your breakfast.
Yeah.
That's not cute. Mm-hmm. That's no longer something that I think we can tolerate.
No.
The same way that it's not okay if you can't afford to put a muffler on your car and it's belching out black smoke. That's no longer okay.
No, that's not. You're right. No, you said it, and you're right. It sounds like they're really taking it serious, though, where you live, with feral cat or outdoor cat.
Cats are the two biggest things that are destroying our wildlife in Australia is destroying the habitat that they live in, and cats. I think that's 1 and 2. Habitat destruction by far and away is the biggest if we're talking global issues. But for particular species, I'm pretty sure that cats might be number 1. Look, I'm pretty sure Steve Murphy won't be listening at the moment, but I reckon that now that a lot of the habitat for the golden-shouldered parrot is protected, I'm pretty sure that cats are number 1. And all those cats in the north of Queensland that are out there wild, they all came from someone's cat that wasn't kept in at night. Or that someone bought a kitten at Christmas or for birthday, and then when it had kittens, they went and dumped the kittens in the bush, which is, what people do. Oh, no, we have to... Man, it's going to cost $200 to de-sexed. Let's just throw it out of the car while we go for a drive, which is, but this is what people do, and, Anyway, I'm a bad person because I made it.
No.
And actually, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what. It's funny you mention that because I'm on Twitter, Reddit, Snapchat, Discord. I'm on all those, but I'm not on
social.
But I'm not on
the other one.
Yeah. But I'm just not on Instagram or Facebook, and it's just because of what you said. It seems like those two platforms. It just, I don't know.
I'm on Instagram, but I don't really do it. I keep wanting to put the time into it because I know that if I want to get the penetration of bird conservation out there, Instagram is really somewhere you need to be. But I'm too busy talking to you and people like you or editing or whatever than I am to be fringing around with images to look pretty and worry about which hashtags I need to use. But I would like to be able to afford to have an assistant who did all that stuff so that the message got out more. I don't know, maybe if my plan to just be a bird nerd nomad around the world, if I can actually do that. And hey, if you're listening and you want to buy me a coffee to go for that, to go into that, that's what my trivia too, which I've been really slack. But we're in an election campaign coming up now. We've got another month of insane rubbish going on where everyone's going to be sick of it. So I'm going to run the Bird Nerd Trivia for a couple of times a week right through the election campaign so people can...
Oh, that's a good idea.
People do something else. But yeah, hopefully that the Bird Nerd Trivia where I ask people to, I think it's $4 or $5, I think is the minimum that I can ask people to do. You can win a T-shirt. Current design for the T-shirt, eat, sleep, twitch, repeat. Just text.
What the shirt say?
I haven't got my prototype yet, but it's just black like this one, and then just in plain type, eat, sleep, twitch, and then in brackets, repeat.
You got me interested. I might have to try this, but the kids in our Dick Sissel Dial report, they put a bird trivia question in there to try to get people to call, but we get about maybe 1 or 2 calls a week, and we update it every week.
When I do the proper rounds, the full show is about 2 hours, but I'm going to do shorter ones, which is about an hour. And then I pull questions rather than... One thing I found out, when I was interested in bird trivia, I went to bird trivia, and there's all these sites, but everyone's just ripped off everyone else's questions. I just made up all my own. And to give true fans an advantage is I try and pull questions out of the episode. But God, who's got time to go back and listen to their bloody 70 episodes of, but I try and go from memory so that if you're a true fan of the podcast, you're going to be a chance to win.
To win, wouldn't I? Yeah.
And I can afford to give away T-shirts, but what I would like, in a perfect world, I'd have a sponsor, Zeiss or Swarovski or something would give me some binoculars to give away or...
Right. That's the binoculars I bought. It was the brand Hawk with the E at the end. Have you heard of them? Yeah. I like them. Yeah.
I haven't seen them over here, but I'm shopping around for new binoculars. I'm wondering whether to go the small ones, which kind of annoy me. They've never felt felt comfortable on my face, but I don't want heavy ones because if I'm going to be schlepping around the world with just a backpack, I don't want anything heavy. So, because to do podcasting, I'm going to have one just of podcasting gear.
Right.
So
I was going to say, what microphone are you using?
This one is the ATR 2100, which I got, I don't know, I think it cost me about $60. And my other microphone, I lent to somebody who wanted to start a podcast, and I've never seen it, as so often happens.
That could happen.
Here's Katie. You're my go-to, Katie. You're going to have to tell me, email me, grant@thebirdemergency.com about getting in touch with you and talking to you because you obviously know something. Compacts aren't great in low light either. Yeah, 8x32s. Yeah. I think when, I grew up with the 10x50s and I don't like any of the 8s. I just, when I'm looking at it, I feel like I'm stuck in a door,
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Yeah, 10x50.
But what I might do, I'm just about to buy a camera, and what I might do is actually just put the money in a...
I had that same conundrum, and I went the Sony mirrorless camera. It's nice, but it's not what you're probably looking at.
Yeah, I'm tossing up at the moment. I'm making the decision between getting a Lumix or a Sony. I'm just tossing up. It's really the lenses, and of course we pay the Australia tax over here, so it costs about double to buy anything here as it does over there. Okay, Katie said she likes the 8x42s for wide field of view and lighter weight. And just what we were saying, she uses her camera or a scope, which she's borrowed. Good. That's always a good strategy for longer distances. Yeah. I nearly bought a scope once. I'm so glad I didn't.
Yeah, I have one. It's right here, right by my computer. I'm looking at the scope right now. It's a Redfield. It's affordable. You might like it. I don't know.
Just because of the weight?
Yeah.
That's the only reason I'm glad I don't have one, because, again, my travelling is going to be done either on an e-bike or with a case full of podcasting gear and a backpack. So
you don't need a scope.
So I don't want a scope. Even more than one tripod is pushing it. Yeah, Katie's just said she needs a scope for being on the lake. Yeah, I can go with that. Katie, have you seen any bittens? That's what I'd like to know. Has your lake got bittens?
I have never seen one. I'd love to.
Have you heard one?
I've heard not in life, but that's a cool sound.
Yeah. I don't even know how long we've been going now. Here we go. See, we've tipped 2 hours and we're still finding new things to talk about with birds. Birds. I'm going to have to cut this into two. This is going to have to be part one and part two.
Oh, wow.
American bittens are migrating right now, and least bittens nest in Katie's hood. You got a pretty cool hood, I think, there, Katie. Yeah, bittens are amazing. Now, so many good projects going on about bittens.
Oh, yeah. I would love to get more interested in seeing more marsh birds, but they're all the rails are tricky. Do you have rails and
crakes?
That's
rails
it.
And crakes and coots and moorhens and swamp hens and
you have all of them. Yeah.
Wood rails we don't have wood rails, but yeah, we've got rails. The banded land rail, mate.
Yeah.
Spotted crake, spotless crake. Yeah, marsh crake. Oh.
I've only seen the Virginia rail look like a little chicken scurrying through the reeds. That was about it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, just talking about birds that are common, but that you don't really see in marshes and swampy, grasslandy, integrate environments. When I was a kid, I was always looking at my bird books, and it always said golden-headed sister cola and reed warbler, and they were both always marked down as common. I used to always see the golden-headed sister cola. Used to see that everywhere. Never, ever seen a reed warbler where I could swear, that I saw it. I've seen things that I think were it zipping out of the field of view off to the side, but I've never put the binoculars on a reed warbler.
I'm like that with wrens are tricky. The marsh wrens or sedge wrens, it's the same idea. It's like, gosh, you hear it, and then I get a glimpse. I'm like, I think I...
Apparently a really good way to get an American jealous is to say fairy wren.
Yeah, that does it. Yeah, that did it. I got it.
We've had a lot of fun. I think we're going to have to wrap up. What time? It's getting into bloody nighttime.
Yeah, it's 11:30. I better tap out. But
oh my God, 11:30. You've missed all the good shows on telly.
That's okay. This was the best time. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I know you were interviewing me and asking questions, but I hope I wasn't rude asking with the question.
Hell no, man. I love it. I love it. It's really weird. People don't ask me to go on their podcast either, which probably because they know I'll bloody take over.
Yeah, that floors me, but don't let me know. We'll get a hold of me for Migratory Bird Day. That'd be great if you get a panel going. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, we'll do that. Katie, I know you're still listening because she said, oh, yes, want fairy wrens. Well, don't we all? Actually, look up on my board at what's coming up. The fairy wren project will be, we haven't got a date locked in, but that's coming. There's going to be lots of fairy wren content. And I've actually got, I think we're going to be expanding the Megaphone Mondays into, I've got the every second week with Holly from BirdLife, from Birds in Backyards at BirdLife. And I think we're going to be able to, don't know if we're going to be able to do it on a Monday, but I've got another regular person that's going to come into the fold. And fairy wrens, one of her big projects. So there's going to be a lot of fairy wrens coming up this year. And more seabirds. I need to do more seabirds because they just get ignored because we're not all out there seeing them. So
I think I've been listening to your shorebird episodes. So
I've been promoting them a bit lately because I want everyone to listen to Steph because Steph's cool. Plus she was episode number 1. Yeah. Everyone, thanks for sticking with us. Everyone in the comments, that was a lot of fun. Katie, Jeffrey, did I forget anyone else? I can't remember. But thank you so much. Jarod, been a pleasure to meet you. If you're in the States, be nice to your Prothonotary Warbler. Be nice to all your warblers. Be nice to your juncos. Be nice to your cardinals.
There you go.
Even though the Catholic Church has really done cardinals a disservice. But there we go. And thanks, Katie. Yeah, we did have some fun. I don't know how I'm going to turn this into an actual podcast episode, but it's going to always be on YouTube for everyone to
for sure
to enjoy. Jarod, let's definitely do this again.
Yep, for sure. Thanks again, Grant. Appreciate it. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
I'm Grant Williams. This has been the Bird Emergency. Ciao.